So it's going to be recorded, but I'm also live streaming to the Facebook group. So there's going to be like a bunch of people that are watching live, but I'm not going to be interacting with them. They're just going to be watching it. Because I already polled people to see what they wanted to talk about. So we're not doing like live Q&A. It's more so going to be like, I have the topics already generated. And then, yeah, so that's how it's going to be.
So I can say hi, everyone in Facebook land.
You can, but not yet, because we're not there yet.
Not yet. Okay, got it.
Let me live stream. This technology thing, like trying to figure out how to do all of this stuff has been a learning process. Like,
oh, I bet. I have no idea how to do it. Goodness.
Yeah. It's like I'm on Google for 2 hours just to figure out how to do one very simple thing.
I love it.
And then that's 2 hours of my day I don't get back, but I learned something new.
Yeah, YouTube too. It's good for that.
Oh God, I can't. You know, they say, you know, you really should be on YouTube. And I can't wrap my head around it. Cover photos, that's what really stresses me out. How do I make I don't know how to make a cover photo. How do I do transitions? I don't know what I'm supposed to do. No YouTube. All right, I think we're live, but I always have to double check because I don't trust myself. So I always just go online, make sure I see myself talking, and then
Good idea.
Yep. Yep, there it is.
Ooh.
What's up?
Hey.
All right.
So
We're
awesome
live
to be
with
here.
Alan. Go ahead and say hello.
Hey, everybody in Facebook land. Thank you so much for attending this live QA session. So I'm just really stoked to be here. Jamie, this is just lovely.
You are awesome, Alan. Well, obviously you guys know who I am. I'm Jamie, trainer, nutrition coach, founder of Strength Method, all the good stuff. And I'm here with Alan. If you know, you know. What is the IFKYK? But if you don't know, Alan is the name behind, he's the guy behind the push for evidence-based practice, really. And I mean, I know there's other people involved, but dude, you're the GOAT. You're the guy, right?
They're all my children and nephews, basically.
Yeah, see, essentially. You are the push behind the person behind that evidence-based practice, that push in the industry. And you are also pretty much either behind every major nutritional research that comes out, or you have critically reviewed it in your research review. Is that fair to say?
That sounds really good to me.
Why don't you go ahead and give a brief intro? You can probably do it better than I can.
I'd say you pretty much covered it. I was part of the small handful of people who brought the concept and practice of evidence-based fitness to the industry. And so, gosh, it was really about 15, 20 years ago that we did this. And it's just been really great to see future generations of professionals, run with the guiding principles that we were hoping to kind of provide and get across and sort of embed into the industry, that it's not about whose opinion sounds the greatest, or it's not about who looks the best, and it's really about a combination of what does the science say and what do professionals observe in the field, and that's how we kind of fill in the gray areas of knowledge and arrive at these practice guidelines, these evidence-based principles. So yeah, I'm basically one of the research guys who collaborates with other scientists, and we do a lot of the protein research, a lot of the sports nutrition and fitness related protein research, and now kind of moving on to looking at research to improve wellness, like in the area of aging well, and also in improving body composition, even for the general public who are interested in various dieting tactics. And there's many, from keto to intermittent fasting.
Right.
And so, yeah, so my colleagues and I are really interested in that area as well.
Very cool. Awesome. Well, I think I've already told you this, but your research review, which is a monthly review of research, it's research review, is almost the only place I go for research. When I want to know stuff about a certain topic, I use your search to find that topic. And I really I think even as a trainer and like a expert in the field, it still can be confusing. And so I think knowing that there's one place I can really go to make sure that I'm giving my clients and my audience like the best information, is really awesome. So, and it's $10 a month, so it's super affordable. And I would say not just for trainers, but like Joe Schmo should probably sign up for your research review, because if people really looking to sort through like the BS, your place is a really good spot to be.
Oh, I love hearing that. I love hearing it because I started that in 2008. So it's like what, 15 years now? Yeah.
Wow.
15
That's
years
awesome.
now. Yeah, yeah. And my review was the one that inspired, well, all the others. So it's cool to see that having been started and keeping going, and people still benefiting after 15 years of doing it. So especially professionals like yourself, Jamie.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Mhm.
Awesome. All right, so let's get into it. So I have a couple of topics that I want to ask you about, talk a little bit about. And then if we have time, I was hoping to do like a rapid fire Q&A. So like
Okay.
5 minutes at the end, I just got a list of questions. You give me like one sentence or less, like your quick answer. How does that sound?
That sounds great.
Awesome. So the first thing I want to talk about, which I feel like this is such a hot topic these days, is reverse dieting. Now, I feel like there's two general schools of thought that I hear from, like, all ends of the spectrum. There's calorie deficit is the only way to be, and you just calculate your calorie deficit and that's it. And you just sit there until you lose fat. It's not that hard. But then you've got the other school of thought, which is like almost everybody in the world needs to be reverse dieting. And if you're not reverse dieting to increase your maintenance, then you're not doing it right. And a calorie deficit's never going to work. I would love to kind of put this to bed a little bit. What is your thought on reverse dieting and who it is good for?
Okay. So it's simple, but not easy. The answer is kind of simple, but not easy. But okay, so the broad answer is that it depends on the starting status of the individual. So if somebody has been dieting their brains out, just calorically restricting very severely for a long period of time, several months, several years on and off, then they may just be psychologically fatigued from the dieting process. And the last thing they need to do is just kind of jump on this restriction train again. And so there are those individuals out there. There, on the other hand, there are folks who have not been dieting and they're ready to just, drop their intake to a moderate degree and then follow through with a conventional dieting process, a conventional hypocaloric process. And so it's the former group of individuals who could benefit from, in quotes, reverse dieting. So, okay, so let's put that answer aside for a second. And there's a couple different kinds of reverse dieting that when people say reverse dieting, not everybody thinks about the same thing. So
Sure.
Reverse dieting started off as a way to, in quotes, safely get out of pre-contest dieting mode. So what physique competitors used to do after their contest is over, in order to avoid the post-contest binge and in order to avoid gaining 15 to 30 pounds within the next 3 days, was to just gradually increase calories until they reach their normal maintenance level. So that was the old version of reverse dieting. And what some folks did in the space was they took that reverse dieting process a little too far and made the increase in calories just way too gradual. And to the point that people's caloric deficits from dieting for the contest ended up being prolonged for like weeks and months, which is not the best thing. So that was version 1 of reverse dieting. Now, version 2 of reverse dieting has kind of nothing to do with contest dieting. It just has to do with regular people getting the reverse dieting buzzword kind of thrown at them. And really what all it is just simply creating a deficit in a different way with more energy in and more energy out simultaneously. You're still creating a deficit. You're just increasing what is technically called energy flux. So when somebody goes on a reverse diet, like the second version of reverse dieting we're talking about that has nothing to do with contest dieting, when they go on that, all they're essentially doing is they're putting more calories to work, and they're still either, holding a maintenance level of caloric balance, or they're actually incurring hypocaloric conditions, but they just happen to be having a higher degree of caloric expenditure at the same time that they're bringing their intake in. And so what people tend to think is, okay, I got a reverse diet to raise my metabolism. And first of all, they're not necessarily raising their resting metabolism, or their 24-hour resting energy expenditure or resting metabolic rate. They're not necessarily raising that. Over time, you might, if you gain enough lean mass, but as you're, gradually increasing your calories, what you're actually doing is you're giving your body more room to expend energy through conscious and unconscious activity, either through increased exercise performance or increased non-exercise activity, or both. So what's happening is you are increasing energy expenditure actively and subconsciously, but not through your resting metabolic rate. So that's the complicated answer to the reverse dieting question.
Right. So essentially what often happens is we eat more and then we move more, whether it's intentionally we have the energy to add more exercise, or unintentionally and moving your hands, moving around, your body's moving more. So you're expending more energy as well. And so you're still kind of creating the same result. It's not necessarily that you're increasing your resting metabolism, it's that you're burning more as well.
Yes. Yes, you're eating and you're burning more, right? But not necessarily burning more through increasing resting metabolism. That's exactly right.
And what would you say is like the percentage of, let's say, your everyday, your 90%ers, I call them, 90% of the population, what we're generally looking for, right? What percentage of these 90%ers that go into focusing on their nutrition or focusing on their fitness, would you say roughly should consider starting in a reverse diet?
Oh boy.
Because it seems right now, it seems like the message is that it's like 80 to 90% of the 90%ers. That's what I'm feeling is the voice that's coming through a lot with this buzzword of reverse dieting.
That's really tough to say, Jamie, because it's really tough to say, because sometimes like people who gravitate towards the reverse dieting idea are folks who have been just chronically trying to restrict for a long, long, long time. And so there are people who serve that niche audience. And so the vast majority of people they work with they're going to put them on a reverse diet. You know what I mean? So I think that the reality of the matter might be sort of skewed when you look at the general population altogether. Most of them just need to get the concept in their head that they're eating too much calories and or moving too little.
Yeah.
And so that kind of takes the reverse dieting concept out of the picture for the majority of the general public, I'd say.
And I feel like a big issue too, where these things kind of clash, like this idea of like you're eating too many calories, but also one of the benefits, I guess, of reverse dieting is that dieting, a lot of people that are just eating too many calories are still cognitively restricting. So when you talked about like that fatigue, there's a lot of people that cognitively restrict. So they're constantly thinking about what they shouldn't eat or what they can eat, but yet they still are overeating. And a lot of it's due to that cognitive restriction. And it's like this, you're stuck between a rock and a hard place. But then to even take that person and put them in a calorie deficit, even if it's a true calorie deficit, might not be the best point because they're still fatigued. So it's like really trying to understand like the whole person and where you're coming from and choosing a strategy for that person.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah. I recently spoke with one of my friends, Heather Binns, who's a trainer in the space. And we arrived at kind of the conclusion that it really helps a lot of individuals to really establish what is their maintenance, what are their maintenance calories, because a lot of people don't know that. They're just been so haphazard for such a long time that it's not very like their baseline is not very clear, like what we need to either add to or take away from. We need a baseline caloric target, and we need to figure that out. So a lot of times it can actually help to not necessarily try to jump into a caloric deficit, but first let's figure out the amount of calories that's actually maintaining you. And then that process would just proceed with a week or two of figuring that out, journaling that out and adding it up and averaging it out and seeing, are you eating 2,000 calories right now? Are you eating 1,500 calories, or are you eating like 3,000 calories right now? So
Yep,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
We call that we do that with our clients in our program. We call it the metabolic optimization period. So we're really focusing on optimizing where they're currently at. So instead of just throwing somebody right into a deficit based on their numbers that they give us, or throwing somebody right into a reverse diet, we really have to, like you said, like establish a baseline and make sure we sit there for a little while to watch what your body does and allow your body to really have the energy to like build strength and let go of the cognitive restriction, and then kind of go from there.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
Very cool. Awesome. Thank you for that.
Yep.
Next question I kind of have is, see what you got on this is menopause and metabolism.
Okay.
So much, I think, confusion around this topic of like, how much is a woman's metabolism actually affected by menopause? And are there kind of caveats within there as well? Can you speak much to that?
Yeah, the unfavorable changes in menopause are partially hormonal and partially a behavioral thing. So on the hormonal side, that can influence body fat distribution. So if somebody, let's imagine a woman is going through menopause, or she's been through menopause, usually at that point, women are usually late 40s, early 50s, late 50s. So it's kind of like from late 40s to late 50s period, where not only are the hormonal changes happening, but the behavioral and lifestyle changes that are typical with the general public also happen. And that is kind of a drastic downshift in physical activity. So when you combine those two factors, so hormonal factors would influence, like I said, body fat distribution. So when you're gaining weight as a woman in your mid 50s, that weight gain is going to be a little bit more biased towards central adiposity or trunk body fat.
So this is like belly
abdominal body fat. Yeah. And so your gains would be a little bit more biased towards that because of hormonal changes. And that effect is kind of exacerbated by behavioral environmental forces that sometimes consciously, sometimes subconsciously lull people into this lower activity level. Like a lot of women in their late 40s, early 50s are just distinctly less physically active than they were in college, let's say. But of course, the agony and the irony is that everybody wants their college body back. So,
right.
If you want your college body back, you kind of have to get your college level of physical activity and training back.
Right. So essentially what you're saying is there is definitely some hormonal reasons for not necessarily body fat gain, but where you gain your body fat.
Gaining.
So maybe
That's
if
right.
you used to gain it more evenly, so it was a little less less noticeable, your hormones kind of shift that gain to more the belly fat area, which obviously is more noticeable and uncomfortable place for women to gain their body fat. But then also this environmental shift, and we're just less active. And so would you say that there's maybe a lot of blame on menopause that is unwarranted?
Yeah, people think that people have this idea that the unfavorable shifts in body composition, like again, a gain in body fat overall, not just distribution, is a function of chronological time in women and a function of just menopause inherently. But that's not true, because there's enough data showing that these changes can be counteracted and reversed just by good old diet and exercise. And so, but it's difficult to execute and maintain that increased physical activity and those new habits while people are in middle age, just because there's a multitude of psychological stress vectors going on, professional and personal, in middle age, more so than at any other point in people's lives. So there is a conflict between wanting to get your college body back and having the mental bandwidth to be able to execute that and maintain those habits.
And along those lines, would you say that there's any reason why somebody in this age group, men or women, would just have trouble losing body fat as they get older? Because that's another thing that we tend to hear is like, oh, when you get older, it's harder to lose weight. Your body just holds on to it. Would you say there's any truth to that?
There's truth to that, but once again, it's not just a function of chronological time. It's a function of you doing a whole lot less non-exercise movement compared to what you did when you were in your fighting shape. So a lot of people, they just move around a lot less and they don't realize it. And when I say move around a lot less, I'm talking about the non-exercise activities and this phenomenon that we call non-exercise activity thermogenesis, or NEAT. The NEAT factor goes down substantially. And that can be just from professional shifts, just occupational differences, like from standing a whole lot more to sitting a lot more, to just being exhausted with the chores of the day, to the point that when you're done at your computer, you just go straight to the couch or the bed. Whereas like 10, 15, 20 years ago, you would have been a lot more active and just doing more things. And so people mistake this drop in non-exercise activity with, oh, my metabolism is slowing down. And I want to add a little caveat to that, Jamie. There are some people who were in great shape at a certain point in their lives. Yeah, and it's usually in college, like early adulthood, who were training, were formerly fit, both cardiovascularly and musculoskeletally, but then they end up becoming sedentary. They end up with, let's say, a sedentary job or a desk job, and then their out of work lifestyle involves a lot of TV and a lot of sitting around, and then they do lose muscle mass. And so if you lose a substantial amount of muscle mass, then that can affect your resting 24-hour energy expenditure as well.
Yeah, definitely. So it's, yeah, definitely a little bit hormonal, a lot lifestyle. And then if we're allowing that lean muscle mass to go as well, that could affect your base metabolism, but that's more so connected to loss of muscle, not necessarily like hormone changes at the core.
Yep. Yeah, there's a lot of factors swirling around.
Totally. I can definitely see that. And I think it's hard for people to really sort through all of that when you're in it. You know what I mean? You're right in it, trying to sort through it all. So appreciate that.
And so thankfully the solutions, they're simple, but they're not easy to maintain. That's the thing. You have to just readjust your habits and, overcome your environment in order to make these things happen successfully, in order to reach the body comp that you once had. And it is totally possible.
Yeah, but I find too, like just working with people in this generation as well, and I'm approaching it, I guess you would say, just thinking about that coming down the road. But is the idea that I totally lost what I was going to say. What did you just say?
It's possible to recapture the body composition.
Sorry, inserting these recommendations that you say are simple, but part of the reason they're not necessarily easy is because a lot of people are inserting these things at a time in their life when the whole prior, they've been engaging in unsustainable things that maybe worked quicker because you moved a lot faster, a lot more during the day, or maybe whatever it was that kept you in that shape, you might have been engaging in a lot of maybe diets or exercise that was unsustainable. And so women tend to think like, oh, I need to do these things, when really the things they need to do are the same things we recommend to most people, regardless of kind of where you are. But inserting that at a time where you said like life is really busy, you're at a place in your job where a lot of people are usually really busy with work, they're at a higher position in work and there's a lot going on. And so inserting that becomes really hard. So I love seeing people that can get this stuff, these foundations down early, strength training, eating a high protein diet, not being afraid of carbs, keeping
Yep.
meat high, getting their
Yes.
steps in, like the basics early,
Mhm.
even though they might think like, this is so simple. Yes, it's simple. Keep doing it because when you get to this point in life, you're going to be so grateful that you have that foundation, because the hardest thing is inserting that with somebody who's got years of just, being through the ringer.
Right. Right. And it can be really discouraging if you have a whole lot of body fat to lose and you have false expectations of how quickly it's going to come off.
For sure.
Or slowly it's going to come off. Yeah.
For sure. Awesome. Thank you for that.
Mhm.
Protein RDA.
Yes.
Why is it so low? Why is it so low? And what is your recommendation for, you were just on Jordan Side's podcast, so I listened to that, and I love the way you summed up the protein dietary recommendations for these 3 groups of people.
Yeah.
But tell me
Yes.
about the RDA first. Why is it so low?
Yeah, the RDA of 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight, which is like what, like 0.3-ish grams per pound or so. The way that they derived it and developed that number was the amount of protein that would allow sedentary individuals to maintain a measure called nitrogen balance. So nitrogen balance is a crude indicator of bodily protein status. So if you're in negative nitrogen balance, you're possibly losing body protein. And if you're in positive nitrogen balance, then you're gaining body protein. So the RDA is based on nitrogen balance, but nitrogen balance is just a very, very crude measure of body protein status. And we don't even use it anymore in research to measure body protein status. We use muscle protein synthesis. We use measures of increases or decreases in lean body mass and changes in strength when possible. And so it's old technology on sedentary subjects, and it has not panned out to be a good target. This 0.8 grams per kilogram, it has not succeeded in maintaining lean body mass in exercising human adults. And it's been problematic actually in older adults. And it certainly has not optimized training adaptations, resistance training adaptations either. And so it's failed on performance, health, and body composition fronts. The RDA has failed in all 3 of those domains. And the reason why it's not changed is really kind of anybody's guess. There's a lot of conspiracy theories swirling around. Why won't they just raise the RDA up to even like 1.2? I mean, the general public is already consuming somewhere between 1.1 to, and in some people as high as 1.3, but right around 1.1 grams per kilo. Why can't we just raise the RDA? I don't know. I guess people up at the top are kind of a little bit too lazy to make those changes.
Yeah, but it feels like, especially like the vegan and vegetarian community like to use that, which I'm all for. I've toyed with that myself. I try to eat a lot of plant-based foods, but using that as like, well, the RDA, and it's, oh my gosh.
Oh gosh, when somebody uses the RDA to defend their argument, it just shows that they have been completely ignorant of the last 20, 30 years of research in a range of different populations, showing that the RDA is anywhere from suboptimal to just woefully insufficient.
Yeah. So what would be your recommendation for your general population, your active individuals, and then like your higher performing?
Yes. So general population without any spectacular goals of performance and body composition change. You just want to be generally healthy, and you don't really love the idea of eating a lot of protein foods. Then you can get away with 1.2 to 1.6 grams per kilogram of body weight. And in imperial terms, that's about 0.5 to 0.7 grams per pound of body weight. And when we program protein targets, it's better to program based on target body weight or goal body weight, or what some call ideal body weight, instead of just your current body weight, because some people may be severely overweight or severely underweight. So we program based on target body weight. And so, yeah, that's general population, general health, no really extraordinary goals for athletic performance or physique development, physique refinement, hitting the clubs, with just like a vest on, something like that. Jersey Shore stuff. So yeah, fist bump, right? Oh
Take
man.
it back, man.
I wasn't sure whether you were old enough to get that, but oh
Oh,
my goodness. Oh
I
my
mean, I'm
goodness.
flattered, but I'm definitely old enough.
I almost didn't drop that one, but I'm thankful that you got it.
I
So
could just whip them out. If you want to do Jersey right now, I mean, you could just whipping it out, but we'll stick to
oh man, utterly amazing. So yeah, so for the people who missed it at the beginning, you said that we attended the NCS. NCS, and yeah,
Oh yeah,
yeah.
nutrition.
Jamie and I really hit it off, so it was fun. It was hilarious. Okay, so yes, the folks who are physically active to the degree that they're engaged in regular exercise, just a well-rounded training program that would obviously,
You've got goals of some sort.
yeah, you've got goals. You want to improve body composition, whether it's gain muscle, lose fat, or both. And you actually do want to optimize health. You don't want to just kind of get by health wise. Then you really would want to look at a minimum of 1.6 grams per kilo of target body weight, which is right around half a gram per pound and of target body weight. So the range
Half a gram
that
per pound?
a half a gram per pound. That's right.
So 0.5,
That
because your first Gen Pop was 0.5 to 0.7 gram per pound.
wait a minute. Okay, let me back up. Yeah, 0.7 grams per pound. Thanks for that correction. 0.7 grams per pound would be the minimum that you would want to target in order to, in quotes, optimize your training adaptations and your health. So just to back up 1 second, 0.5 to 0.7 is just Gen Pop regular, nothing extraordinary. And then you've got 0.7 at the bottom. You know what? All the way to a full gram per pound. Some people get a little upset once we start talking about a gram per pound of target body weight, because it's a lot of protein for folks, and a lot of protein can be not a little bit economically challenging and logistically challenging, but some people really actually do benefit from protein intakes that high. So that is that's sort of that other range, the range where you want to optimize training adaptations for both performance and body composition. You're really looking at a minimum of 0.7 grams per pound of target body weight, which is 1.6 grams per kilogram of body weight. And it's totally okay to look ahead as far as 2.2 grams per kilogram of target body weight, or 1 gram per pound of target body weight. So that's like bracket 2. Now, bracket 3 is a very niche group of folks who can benefit from consuming more than 2.2 grams per kilogram of body weight, or a gram per pound of body weight. And those people are typically competing in physique contests, and just they're already lean, and they're dieting, and they're competing. So it's that population who can benefit from above 2.2 grams per kilogram of body weight, all the way up to, low threes per grams per kilogram of body weight. But that, like I said, that's a very fringe population, and a lot of 99.99% of the general population won't necessarily benefit from consuming that high of protein.
But what's good to know, and what this group already knows, because we've talked a lot about protein after that NCS, and we're talking about protein, my gosh, the whole freaking weekend. I came home and talked about this a lot with the group, but the idea that there's really not a lot of downsides to over consuming protein, especially when we're talking about body composition. So that was really interesting too, but not necessarily a need to go above a certain amount, that those are two different things, like benefits of over consuming protein versus what do you actually need and what should we actually be targeting?
Yeah, and a lot of people will be worried about protein's effects on bone, protein's effects on kidney, but the data just aren't there to support those concerns. They really are not. Unless somebody's been diagnosed with chronic kidney disease, then you can build a case for them to kind of lowball protein, like ease it back down to the, below 1.6 grams per kilo. You could you ease it back down, ease it down to the 1.2, or 0.5 grams per pound, or even the RDA, depending on what your doctor or your renal dietitian says. But yeah, otherwise the downsides of highballing your protein are just, it's really far-fetched.
Yeah. But I think this is helpful too, though, because, we, and definitely you, live in this like nutritional research world that I can't even fathom, but then I'm in a nutritional research world that maybe some other people can't necessarily fathom or see as well either. So for like your Gen Pop person, we're still kind of hearing this 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. And when you're talking to somebody who is overweight, even just a little bit, this is an enormous amount of protein. And they are thinking that and it becomes something that is very unsustainable for them to do, very discouraging, very frustrating. And so I'm really in the camp of, I mean, 0.7 is kind of my go-to, and then we go from there. But I think it's important for people to realize that they can still meet their goals with a much more moderate amount of protein. And there's research to back that up. Not only that, but we're talking, like you said, ideally, we're looking at target body weight or lean mass, right? But it's hard to necessarily know lean mass on an individual. And so we kind of go with target body weight. And that's really what we're looking at versus, you have a 200-pound person. Are they supposed to be eating 200 and plus pounds of protein per day? There's nothing wrong with it.
Yes.
It might be really challenging.
Yes. People have the right to be up in arms when you don't specify per unit of lean mass, or at least a surrogate of lean mass, which is target body weight, which is a simpler and there's less assumptions built into using target body weight anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Cool. Very helpful.
All right.
My last bigger topic question before I have a little rapid fire.
Okay.
Can you do rapid fire, Alan? Like, can you spit it out?
You know what? It is a little early in the day for me, but I'm gonna try to dial in. I'm gonna try to dial in.
All right. Put this one to bed for us. Seed oils. I can't clump these. Seed oils and dyes. Is there really a fear to be had?
Okay. The dyes. Okay. The dyes question. There's a lot of toxicology data done to determine the safe thresholds of dye intakes and stuff. It's just, you can't necessarily study that in humans. The toxicology research is usually pretty extensive, where they use very, very large doses, testing on animals, rodents, to see effects, and then they extrapolate whether that's going to harm humans. And I personally am not worried about dye consumption, especially since the majority of the foods I eat are whole and minimally processed, and they're not going to involve a bunch of dyes and stuff like that anyway. So if your overall guiding principles of the diet are in place, then dyes should not really be a factor in the things you're concerned about. So that's sort of the quick take on dyes. Seed oils is hilarious. It's a hilarious topic. I always like to relay this story because it taught me something about people's headspace about the seed oil thing. So I was on a gentleman named Max Lugaver. He's big in the sort of the fitness and even like the, in quotes, the biohacking space. Except he's a science appreciating dude, and I actually really like Max Lugaver. I really like him, and I really like his curiosity, and the way that he approaches nutrition is really very similar to the way I do. Because he's very skeptical about mainstream recommendations and stuff. And so there's this big push in the fringe fitness space about seed oils are going to kill you. Seed oils are bad. Seed oils are the devil, and they're really what are responsible for the downfall of the health of humanity. And so that is a fringe belief. And the mainstream belief has been avoid animal fats, avoid saturated fats, dump all kinds of seed oils into your diet. And so we have that conflict in the media. All right, so back to Max Lugavere. I was on his podcast, and I do read the comments when I can of my podcast spots. And I happened to read that like all of the comments were just excellent. They're all positive and all encouraging, and no hate in the comments. But this one dude said, "Don't listen to Alan. He encourages artificial sweeteners." No, he thinks seed oils and artificial sweeteners are healthy. Don't listen to him. And so I just I took issue with that. And his tone was really kind of snarky, and he just wanted to make this bold statement that, hey, this guy's BSing you. He's pulling the wool over your eyes. And so I just, for whatever reason, I had the energy and I had the time at the moment. I just wanted to engage him. And you can tell when somebody steps up to you in good faith or in bad faith. You can tell by tone, and you can tell by whether they're preaching or whether they're asking a question. So this guy was definitely preaching, and he was kind of coming at me. He was attacking. So I was going to use sort of the public square to open up discourse and reveal to the public how strong this guy's position is or not. And so I responded in the most civil way possible, and I said, all right, so your first error is lumping seed oils into just one single monolithic unit when they're actually a diverse group of foods. So let's start off with specifics. Which seed oil are you concerned about? What adverse health outcomes are you concerned about? And what research do you have to support that concern? And so let's start there. Crickets. A few months later, crickets. So he came at me real strong, but when it came down to really discussing the seed oils issue, can't do it. And you know what? I found out that that's very common with most people who are freaked out about seed oils. And sometimes when they do engage, it's canola oil that they bring up. They're like, it's canola oil. Yeah, that'll get you. That'll kill you. Canola oil. All right. I'm like, okay, well, that's interesting. But when we're having a discussion, it's really easy to have this fireside testimonial sharing session, but that's not a scientific discussion. Scientific discussions are composed of sharing evidence and not just opinions, not just, Joe Blow's blog article or YouTube video. Let's share research, post some research showing that canola oil harms humans in whatever health index you want, whether it's an intermediate health marker, like just changes in blood lipids, or whether it's a hard outcome, like some sort of disease state. Let's see, bring the research. Crickets can't do it. Mm-hmm. It's a freaking rumor. And so, you can go down the list of seed oils too. Try and find some negative stuff on sesame oil. Oh, darn, it's all positive, And better so
sesame oil is delicious.
I mean, it better be. Otherwise, people in Asia have been just drizzling their food with a bunch of poison all these years.
Drizzling their white rice with poison. I mean, this is double whammy.
Double whammy. Yeah. So the whole seed oil thing, the root of people thinking it's evil is when, at the population-wide level, many decades ago, people were swilling down Crisco and hydrogenated vegetable oils And hydrogenated oils have been banned for several years now from the commercial supply. And so, yeah, if you're talking about hydrogenated seed oils, hydrogenated vegetable oils, yeah, those are bad. Yes, you can find a lot of data showing adverse effects on blood lipids and health outcomes. Yeah. But seed oils as a general thing, just saying they're bad, that's an erroneous statement because it's oversimplified and it doesn't get people anywhere. It's just generally false.
Yeah. I mean, even canola oil, would you say that there is research to back up the argument that we shouldn't be consuming canola oil?
No, if you
Not
were
there.
to do like a win-loss column,
Yeah.
like like positive effect studies on canola oil, adverse effect studies on canola oil, it would sort of look like this.
Gotcha.
So, where are you getting your evidence from and how are you forming your opinions? What is your standard of evidence? Those are questions that people have to ask themselves when they say seed oils are bad. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like saying running is bad.
Yeah.
Okay, who's running? Where are they running? How long are they running? It's kind of like that.
Were their hands tied behind their back, or were they?
Right. Are they running through traffic? Are they running in the freeway? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's context always matters.
Totally. And it's even like, I've always found it ironic, even the way we introed this, like the push for evidence-based, and we talk about like, yes, I'm behind the push for evidence-based. Why was there a push why wasn't this always the standard? Like, why weren't we always why did there have to be a push or a movement in order to get to this? It's like beyond.
I kind of have a theory on that, a hypothesis actually, because it's like evidence-based practice began with medicine. And so before evidence-based practice, people just gravitated towards the doctors who healed the most patients, who got the best results. But it turns out that you can still get great results and a whole bunch of bad results that you don't report, but still be a very popular doctor. And so there's a risk associated with the absence of objective experimentation. And as the scientific research base grew, then we started saying, let's consult the scientific research first and weigh that and balance that out with what these people are doing in the field and see if there's some sort of convergence there. And when there is a convergence of observational evidence and experimental evidence, then the evidence is very strong. So I think in fitness, the scientific research base was not always there in terms of health outcomes, as well as performance outcomes, as well as body composition outcomes and how nutrition relates to that. It's fairly young, just a couple-ish decades of accumulating evidence of what works for what in terms of protein, carbs, fats, dieting, and training, and even like really cool things like rep range for hypertrophy. What's that about? Rest intervals for hypertrophy, total volume through the week, and all that bro-ish stuff. That's really only come to light and become real solid within the last 10 years.
Yeah. And I think it confuses people because we're always having new research, but it's like, calm down, this is good because we're expanding on our knowledge base. And as we come out with new research, it's showing our as a society, our growth of knowledge in these areas, not necessarily that it's constant contradictions. I think sometimes people see it as like these constant contradictions, they keep changing their minds. Like, no, we're learning more and we're expanding, we're updating you, on the knowledge.
Yeah,
so
we are updating. And I like that topic of people getting frustrated by conflicting findings, conflicting results and data. I think that being able to understand just sort of the basics of study design would help people know whether in fact it's really conflicting or not. Because sometimes just looking at the differences in the population studied, so the difference in the subjects or the participants studied, whether they're trained or untrained, whether they're healthy or whether they're in a disease state, that can substantially impact the results. And so just if two different studies are using two different populations, that alone can explain the differences in the results.
Yeah.
And even things like if the protocol is different, the differences in the protocol or the difference in the doses tested, those can influence the results as well. So if people can just even do something as basic as look at who was studied, what is their profile of the people studied, and then look at the protocol or the agent or the supplement or the dose or the diet, the particular diet,
Mhm.
what are they doing with it? You just look at those two things. There's going to be a lot of times there's going to be major differences in those factors between two studies. And then you could easily say, well, yeah, this study showed something and this study didn't, because the study that didn't, they only used X amount of dose of whatever you're looking at, or they used a population like that exhibits newbie gains, like no matter what you throw at them,
Yeah,
So there's all kinds of stuff to look at with respect to
which can make it
methodology.
confusing to,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
It can confuse people who don't have the time or the energy to
Yeah.
look at the differences in study design in
Yep.
those aspects. Yeah.
Absolutely. Awesome. All right, rapid fire Q&A. You ready?
Let's go. Let's do this.
All right. Best ways to improve or increase your bone density. Like your 3 top tips.
Yes. Bone building nutrition comes down to, at a simple level, enough protein, calcium, and vitamin D.
Yep.
So ideally you would get that through diet rather than just slamming the supplements, and combine those nutritional factors with resistance training. And then you have the recipe for healthy bones. I am not somebody who's afraid of dairy. And if you look at the evidence base on dairy, you'll see unless okay, take butter out of the equation. All right, take butter out of the dairy group, then you've got a overwhelmingly favorable effects from dairy.
Yep, for sure. Your top recommended supplements, speaking of supplements, for like your 90%ers, your most people that you would recommend.
Okay, I base this on just population-wide common shortcomings in essential micronutrition. So if you're unwilling to seek out calcium-containing foods, and then there's a little controversy, unfortunately, with calcium supplementation. So I'll leave that out for a second. The general population tends to not eat enough vitamin D3. So supplementing vitamin D3 is a simple and safe and just multiply demonstrated as effective solution for that. The general population tends to underconsume omega-3 fatty acids. And the most bioavailable and the most solidly supported form would be marine-based omega-3s. You can get it from plant-based sources as well, but you just have to dose up a whole lot more. So it's efficient enough to either dedicate yourself to eating fatty fish 2 to 3 times a week, or you can just supplement with fish oil. Magnesium, another nutrient that at least half of the population comes up short on consuming. And it's just really easy and safe enough to consume the RDA for magnesium supplementally. And then there's rabbit holes to go down there, what form of magnesium to use, but that's a little bit secondary. And creatine for those who want a little bit of help in increasing strength and power. So I'm not somebody who's a big fan of just jumping on supplements and just stacking creatine as a matter of standard practice for everybody, but there's an accumulating amount of research on the health benefits of creatine as well, not just for muscles, but also for joints and, gosh, even neurologically, brain health. And frankly, people who decide to go vegan, there goes their dietary creatine. So vegans could benefit from supplementing with creatine. And, I take a multivitamin. In fact, I take 2 multivitamins. It's just the ratio of benefit to risk is just super high.
Would you say a multivitamin on top of these other supplementations?
Yeah, I do. But I just pull out all the stops, and I'm aware of just how the potential micronutrient pitfalls in diets.
Yeah.
Even the there's the research on soil nutrition and nutrient depletion in soils is kind of disturbing. And so I would just cover my bases with a cheap, third party verified, high quality, inexpensive yet high quality multivitamin. And
Costco plug, they have a sale on all supplements up until January.
good.
2nd. You would think I
Good.
work for them, Costco. They
That's
should
what I
hire
use. I use the Kirkland brand.
Kirkland all the way.
Yeah. It's like I said, it's inexpensive, and you are really hedging your bets in the right direction with like zero risk.
Yeah.
So I don't know why anybody wouldn't take a multivitamin. People who buy into the whole idea that multivitamins are a waste, multivitamin. Yeah, get somebody on parenteral and enteral nutrition, and when they're surviving and on bed rest, hell yeah, they're going to be being infused with the full range of essential micronutrients.
Right.
And if you think that the general population out there has a well-balanced diet with a full spectrum of micronutrition in anywhere close to optimized amounts without any shortcomings, you're absolutely kidding yourself. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Awesome.
So that's what I would say as a rapid fire.
No, that was that's what I was like, can you rapid fire, Alec? Can you expand on your thoughts on this? Are there inherently inflammatory foods?
Yes. Yeah. But then the bigger question is, like, what does it take for them to be a factor? Because it always is about dose. It always is about context. So if you are consuming a 6-pack of, let's say, Sprite or Coke a day, then you're going to ignite inflammatory processes, and it'll show up clinically eventually. But unless you are just really dosing up on foods that cause inflammation, like deep fried foods, on an excess of anything really fried. And by the way, dairy has been pegged as an inflammatory food, but it's just not, and the data has panned that out. I think you're kind of looking at the wrong things when you're worrying about inflammation amidst a diet that's mostly whole and minimally processed.
So it still comes down to that general rule of like 90-10 or 80-20, minimally processed whole foods.
Yeah, and I got to throw in this little wrinkle here. One of the benefits of making sure that you do get enough omega-3 fatty acids is so you can mitigate undue inflammation.
Right.
And so and that's another reason why people should be consuming an abundance of plant foods in the diet also. So there are anti-inflammatory and antioxidant effects of those things that kind of converge towards better health.
Cool.
Yeah. So that was an interesting question.
Yeah. My last, actually I have two more. It's 11:59. Are we good for a couple more minutes?
Of course.
Okay,
Yeah.
just make sure you don't have something immediately after. This next one's interesting as well. For people who have a standing job or they're standing a lot, but not necessarily moving, how is the step count and NEAT, et cetera, still just as important, or are they still getting the benefits of standing versus sitting?
You know, in my observations, people with a standing job are typically moving while they're standing.
Yes, even if their watch isn't necessarily tracking that movement.
That's right. Anybody who has worked a cash register, especially at a supermarket where you're doing this epic rotational stuff all day long, loading and unloading the basket.
You're doing rotational.
You are 100%, man. They step counters are not necessarily going to detect that.
Cool.
I'm all for raising step count for most people who sit around too much, but I think that there's a little bit too, I think the pendulum swung a little too far
It always has
to one direction.
Do it, and then it's got to settle in the middle.
Yes.
Awesome. That is helpful. All right. I'm hoping you can answer
Yes.
this one. Again, I listened to you came on Jordan Sykes podcast, and there was a secret smoothie recipe that you did not reveal. Can you?
Oh, shoot. Okay. Okay. All right. All right. So there's a couple variations of it.
Oh, here we go.
I'll try to give you the, all right. So the secret is that you can use, for those of you who like green tea, you can use matcha powder to make all kinds of cool smoothies with that green tea twinge, that
Yeah.
bitter kind of green tea-ish twinge, that it's an acquired taste. Some people love it, some people freaking hate it. But if you use vanilla protein powder with frozen bananas and ice,
Oh my
and you
gosh, with
dump a
some
little scoop of matcha in there, you have this really cool freaking green, yummy, creamy smoothie that's just real good. And you can for the liquid portion, I use non-fat milk, and that's what makes it, kind of pulls it all together for me. But some people are not milk folks, so they can use water, or one of those fake milks is fine.
fake milks.
Yeah, that's the secret, man.
Yeah, I love that. I'm gonna try that. I never actually thought about combining those. That sounds
Yeah.
awesome.
Well, you heard it here first, man.
There you
People
go.
copy it. People copy it. You got to give my wife Jenna Aragon. Got to give her credit.
Oh yeah, nice. Awesome. Awesome, Alan. Well, that's what I got for you. Thank you again. This is really, I'm gonna post this in other places, but right now where we're streaming, like this is really our home, our Facebook group. It's called Team Strength. And this is just really a safe place for a lot of people to be able to get fitness and nutrition advice, but also just share wins, share struggles, share recipes, ideas, and just come together as a community. So you being here means a lot to all of us. So thank you so much for that. I got to get a selfie real quick. Can you give me a flex? And we're going to take a picture.
Oh, I'm a little bit,
you can unhide it if
let me
you
see
want,
if
or you
this,
can leave it. It's up to you.
let me see if this even is going to work. All
Or we can do your, what is it that you do?
This one?
Yeah, we can do like one each.
Can you take the picture like that?
I'm gonna take
It's
a
gonna be tough.
screenshot. Ready, go.
Oh, okay.
Wait, what do you do with your fist? Oh, there we go. Okay, screenshot that one. Now, get a closer with this one. Awesome. Yours is bigger than mine. I'm gonna show you.
Let's see. Well, you're still a great person, even though your biceps are not as big as mine.
Thank you. That means a lot. I'll take that with me today. Thank you so much, Alan. I appreciate you again. And yeah, we'll stay in touch. Actually, I'm gonna see you on Saturday because I'm coming to that thing.
Oh, awesome.
I'm
Awesome.
really
Great.
So is Laura.
You'll be at.
You remember Laura, you met her as well. She'll be there.
Oh yeah.
And Kelsey, our other assistant coach, will be there as well. So we're all going to get some learning on with you and the rest of the crew.
Oh man, that is so great. Thank you so much for, in advance for attending that.
Oh yeah.
And thank you everybody in the group for checking this out. It really means a lot.
Awesome. Thank you. And we will talk to you soon.
Got it.
All right. Bye.
Bye.